Yeah, welcome to Creativity with Christine. I was going to get a jingle, but we'll do that later. Okay, oh my goodness, somebody's watching. 3 people are watching. Welcome to my Sanctum Sanctorum. This is the place where I can make a mess. A mess. And when Corinne asked me if I'd be interested in doing this, I was like, who's gonna want to watch me messing around? But I'm sure as the weeks go on, I will find out whether anyone does or doesn't. Now, the first thing to say is that, have I reconnected? It said I had disconnected. Hello, are we still there? Hi Helen, hi Daniel, hi Mark. Oh, David. Hi. What's the matter?
It's got your. You need to turn your thingy off.
Oh, what's my thingy?
You need to turn. It's interrupted at the moment, so you need to turn the Wi-Fi off.
Oh, I need to turn my Wi-Fi off. Hold on. If you're still there, then I need to turn my... Well, you know, I'm not used to this. So John told me I had to turn off my Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's turned off. Am I still going? Am I still going? Somebody's watching. Anyway, I'm back. Woohoo! Okay, enough of that. I have one word for you. And that word is fun. Oh, jeez. Yes? Excellent, thank you. John's just confirming that we're back. This is such a shambles. It's fine. If it is a shambles and it is a bit of a mess, then that's perfect because we're here to have fun. Okay. What I thought I would do today is just go through some of the materials because today we are going to be looking at watercolour paint. So in order to do anything with watercolour paint, we first of all need paints, then we need brushes, and finally we need something to paint on, usually paper. One of the terrible things about this is that I decided to research what you could get. Price point. We don't want to be going out and spending a fortune on fancy paints. There is no need to do that. So I went into a local shop. That sounds like a song. I went into a local shop. Maybe I'm not allowed to say what the name of it is, but it's really big and it's on the way to Paisley and it's quite near a cafe, which I can't say the name of. And the name of the shop rhymes with The Bange. And it begins with an R, so you can figure it out. Because they have loads of art material. They have loads and loads of art materials upstairs. And I found this. Now today we're going to be looking at watercolours, watercolour paint specifically, which isn't quite as manky and messy. Oh, that reminds me. Number one, before you do anything, remove any clothing that you don't want to get in a mess. I'm going to do that off camera. Hold on. Because that would be a whole other show that you wouldn't want to see, trust me. Put on your old painting smock and always remember to change back. Here we go. Before you go into the real world. This is me with my painting smock. One of my nicest dresses relegated to my painting smock. Okay, first of all, prepare old clothes, a surface that you don't mind getting a bit dirty. However, you can put an old towel down like this. I don't know whether you can see. I have an old towel down here. It's manky, covered in paint. And yes, paint, watercolour specifically. When I went into, I'm just going to say it, the range, because like, arrest me. I found these watercolours. Now watercolours, for me, in my experience, have come in 3 different mediums. You've got little tubes, which are very cute. You've got what you might remember as a kid, and if you've got kids and they've got paints, they may come in this format, which is what are called pans. So they're just little flat boxes of paint. Pans, and finally, liquid watercolours. These are fun. They're like ink. So what I will say is, price point, these watercolours, $4.99 for 12. Trust me, they would last you a long time. These are a little bit more expensive. They're about 22 quid for 10. But trust me, I've used them a lot and I still haven't replaced them. So they last a long time too. The pans, first set of watercolours I ever bought. Oh my god, I love these paints. They were about 28 quid. And I think there might be 40 colours in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Anyway, 36 colours, which can be replaced at any time. You can just order them. I'm going to put the links for all this stuff in the bottom. Paints, watercolours, 3 types. Paper, because we need something to paint on. I started off painting in a nice little journal. Actually, I started writing in it. Like really important thoughts. Because you know I'm one of those tortured artists. So I have to write down my really important thoughts. And I used to take this to, I'll just say all the names. I used to take it to Costa. Because I went every morning to do some writing. And one day I thought, I'm going to take my paints. So I took my paints in a nice little brush. They gave me some water. And I just started to play. Once again, there's that word, play. We're not here to get anything right. I certainly have got a few things wrong. But that's because I had some kind of expectation about how it was going to turn out. And expectations are often disappointments waiting to happen. So for me, approaching painting was really just about having fun. In fact, the first painting that I ever did in this sort of iteration was this. Now, all that is me cleaning a brush. I was just cleaning a brush, seeing all the different, actually no, I was cleaning the paint pans because they were a bit dirty. So I was just scrunching around in them, and then the excess paint I just used and did this, and I thought, what? Oh my god, colour is just such an emotive thing. Look at that red melting into that beautiful blue. Look at that yellow. Oh! So that was me. I was hooked. This whole journey has really been about being amazed at what happens when colour meets another colour. There you go. I'll put the link up if anybody fancies getting one of these. By the way, I'm not getting a kickback for any of this stuff. That's my first little journal. Then, a good friend of mine who said to me, you seem to be doing quite a lot of painting. How about something a little bit bigger? This is, I'll put the link up again, 25 by 25 centimetres. Really nice. Loads of pages, don't know how many. Only about 8 quid. Fantastic. Oh, something just came up there to tell me I'm about to... Doesn't matter. So that was the second thing. Then I went on to bigger and bigger paper. I can just show you all that later. But coming back to fun, I didn't really know what I was going to do today. And I was like, okay, why don't we just look at 3 different techniques with watercolour paint that we can use, that we can have fun with, F-U-N, finally understanding nothing. So, as is typical for me, I've chosen one technique that I'm very familiar with, that I have used a lot in the past, and another 2 that I don't do and that I haven't done since I tried them out this morning. So that's exciting, something new for me. So I'm going to get some paper. Let's look at the paper. I'm going to use some watercolour paper. Now, I progressed onto this. You can use, well, I don't know if you can use just paper. You probably can printing paper, yes. You'll certainly get the effect. But I am using this paper, which is really quite thick. Paper comes in different weights. This is 300 grams per square metre, GSM. I didn't know that's what it meant till I looked it up today. And it's quite sumptuous. But these techniques should work on any paper. I'm going to take one of the gorgeous sheets. Now this paper probably comes in at about 20 quid for 50 sheets. You don't have to use a whole sheet. When you're just having fun, you can use half a sheet or quarter of a sheet. And really, the idea is just to have fun. Now, I think I'm going to point the camera down so that you can see what I'm doing as opposed to my daft face. Let's just see how that looks. Trust me, every day is a school day. Can you see me? Unfortunately, all I can see is everybody talking, so I'm not sure if you can see the paper. Yes, you can. I'm going to cut this in half. Well, when I say cut, I mean rip. I'm going to rip it in half. And that gives me now, because I did one earlier. This feels like Blue Peter, by the way. Did one earlier. I've now got 3 individual pieces of paper on which I am going to practice. Could all go wrong. 3 different ways of getting texture into watercolour paint. Texture. Now, this one makes me laugh. We will be using household items. So, Juliet, can you see all the stuff I've got here? We will be using something that everybody has in their cupboards. Normal salt. You can see where I bought that. I think it was about 39 pence. We will also be using, baking paper. Or as I like to call it, baking parchment, because I was brought up posh. And thirdly, this is exciting. Thirdly, we'll be using, just washing up liquid, bubbles. We'll be using bubbles. Let's go. First, I'm going to do the thing that I find the most fun. I don't know how it turns out because I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it and let it dry. All of these techniques need you to let them dry before you get the full effect. So impatient people like me or Corinne, you'll just have to wait to see what happens, okay? So we're going to start with bubbles first. Bubbles. Oh, I'm back. I think my connection went. Then you just wash out the little ramekins and we can use them for lots of different things in art. Okay, a little bit of water, a little bit of bubbles. I think I might add some more just because I want to make sure we get plenty of bubbles. So the water went in, the bubbles went in, and I decided to use these. Is that a mirror image? Can you read that? Don't know. I'll put all the details, as I say, in the comments that you can watch back later. Look at these colours. Actually, that's enough to just give me, whoa, I love it, colour. In this little ramekin, we've got some vermilion. It's a lovely colour. Nice and bright red. And we just mix it. So in here, just to recap, for the hard of thinking, like me. We've got water, paint, watercolour paint. I'm using the tubes and washing up liquid. Now, this is going to make very interesting viewing because I'm now going to blow. I'm going to blow. Here we go. Are you ready? I'm actually going to take the light out of the way. Maybe you'll see what I'm doing a bit better. I'm just going to blow until I get lots of bubbles. And then when I get the bubbles, apparently, what I'm then going to do is put the bubbles onto the paper. Right, here we go. Wow. Look at that. Then just very gently lay the bubbles on the paper. And do it again. If they could see me now, that little gang of mine. Try not, and I'm just saying this because it seems to me to be a sensible thing to say, try not to dribble the water onto the paper. Oh, like that. So there's some of the vermilion. Now what I would say is when you make a mess and you know it's something you don't want to happen, just mop it up. I'm going to use my old dress because that's what I do with it. It's manky. Second colour, quite nice to only use 2 colours because I've only got 2 ramekins, so hey ho, here we go. This is just a nice cobalt blue, by the way. Keep it still and let it fall onto the paper. Try not to dribble like that. I actually can't believe I'm doing this live. It's crazy. I don't even know how it's going to turn out. By the way, the more you laugh, the better your bubbles are. So, hey ho. I'm just going to put that down there. Now, I don't know if you can see, but apart from my dribbly hands, me dribbles, what's happening obviously is, you see that? I'm going to take this off. Can you see that? Maybe. Yeah, there, look. So the bubbles are obviously forming with their individual colours. The colours may mix. I don't actually know what's going to happen. But I'm going to put this to one side. Oh, they're bursting. Look at that. You see, that's part of the fun. You don't have to actually produce something that you think, oh, I could hang that on the wall, or oh, I could make a nice card out of that. The process is the fun. And another thing to say, this isn't for anyone else but yourself. It's for yourself to have some fun. Now, I sound like Frank Carson. Sorry. Woo! The bubbles are bursting. I think I need to move this somewhere else. But I think I'll move it with great trepidation. Very carefully. Very carefully. Let's take the bubbles and put them somewhere else. Okay. That's it. Oh, I just knocked something over. That's fine. That's fine. So that was the bubbles. The bubbles with the tubes of watercolour paint. Remember, $4.99 for 12 from the range, cheap at twice the price. I should have stole up the barrows. So they're going back in their bed. Stop being interesting. They're going back in their bed. And next we're going to go on to something else that I haven't done before. I'm going to put these little ramekins over here because they could spill everywhere. The next technique that I'm going to try is the old baking parchment. Now, I haven't actually done this before this morning. And because these are all things that you need to leave to dry, I totally did the Blue Peter thing. Look at the state of my hands. I totally did the Blue Peter thing and prepared some an hour ago. I don't know what they're going to look like, but we'll have a look at the end. Baking parchment, rip it off, sort of roughly, that was a good sound, roughly the size of the paper that you're using. I wonder if that needs to come down a bit. Can you see? Can you see? I think you can. Okay, so I've got a bit of baking parchment here. And I'm going to cover the paper, this time using the watercolour pans. So the hard blocks of watercolour paper. I'm also going to need water because I'm going to be painting onto the paper. Now, watercolour you can do one of two ways, as far as I know. You can do wet on wet or wet on dry. Wet on wet means soaking the paper first. And wet on dry obviously is just going straight onto the paper. I've got my 1, 2, oh my god, it's a big one, pots of water. And I'm just going to wire in there. I'm just going to get stuck in and cover the paper in some interesting colours. Right, let's see what we're going to go for. Hope you can see this. We're going for a red. Ooh, look at that. A nice warm red. Tomato red. I might actually... It's quite interesting sometimes to stay with one tone. So I might just do this with the reds. There's a nice tomato red. There's a darker red. It's a cooler red. Ooh, look at that. That's crimson. Oh my goodness. That's kind of like blood. I quite like that. Crimson. And so now you're just playing. This is actually how I started painting. I literally just went, oh my goodness, look what happens when you put yellow next to red or whatever. So here we go. And I'm just going straight across. I'm not doing anything fancy. This brush, by the way, you can get brushes that range from £1 for 10 in the pound shop, which is absolutely fine. They'll be acrylic. You can use them. You don't have to look after them terribly well. This brush cost so much money that I wouldn't even tell you how much it cost. And what I would say is make sure you take care of things that you've invested in, because I left this lying in water and it's kind of splitting. So I'm not very proud of that. Anyway, back to the painting. Now, can you see, all I've done is just, oh, looks like a bit of a sunset. Just done that. Me being me, I think it looks a bit boring. See how shiny it is? So it's still damp. That was wet on dry. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to, oh my god, mix it up with something. Yeah, I'm going to mix it up with some of these pre-mixed watercolours. Now, another thing about painting is, can you see how that's bent? Apparently, you're meant to stick your painting down with some, can't remember what it's called, specific kind of tape. I don't do that because I'm too lazy. So I'm just going to dribble, ding, ding, ding. I'm basically just making a glorious mess on the paper. Want to see it? I'll show you up close. Oh, by the way, always remember, if you are using liquid watercolours, screw the lid back on, because I have spilled quite a few. So there you go. Oh my goodness, look at that. I just went mad. What you want to do, before you put the baking, what we're going to do is put the baking parchment on top of the wet paint. So you want to make sure it's wet enough that it sticks. By the way, you get quite nice little patterns if you put your fingers all over it as well, as I have found. So we're just going to wet the paper just a little bit more, but not too much. This is a bit I'm not sure of. That's pretty wet. Can you see how shiny that is? Dun, 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 dun. Quite shiny. Now, oh yeah, there's also that. If you do that, you get nice. Look at that. Honest to God, my heart still beats faster when I watch paint dissolving into paint. So, baking parchment, which you can buy at any supermarket or whatever. Tesco obviously sell it because that's where I got that. And then we place the parchment, I'm somewhat trepidatious about doing this, place the parchment on top of the wet paint. And just, I hope you can see this, just do that, right? Now what happens is, the parchment will stick in certain areas and will not stick in others. So that looks like, oh my goodness, is this actually working? That looks like it's worked because I'm scared to move because it has stuck in some areas and not others. Can you see that? Oh my lord, it's doing its thing. This is the thing about paint. You know, we are not in control. The paint will always just do what the paint does. So I'm going to go and place this next to the bubbles. Go and sit next to your bubble friends. There you go. That's number 2. By the way, I've got no idea how long I've been because I didn't put a timer on. So, hardy har har. Oh, do you know what we could do? What we could do is we could go to the parchment that I made earlier because it should be dry. So I did that. I went wet on dry paper, put some colour on, made sure it was wet enough that the parchment would stick in some areas. So I'm going to now reveal if it's actually worked. Dun, dun, dun. Would you like to see the great unveiling? Let's see what it looks like. Okay. I think it's dry enough, but then I don't really know. So if it all looks a bit mushy, maybe it wasn't dry enough. I'm going to peel it off and reveal underneath some kind of texture in the water. Actually, I'll do it flat. Some kind of texture in the watercolour. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if you can see that up close. So that what we're looking for is to get texture into watercolour paint. And I think what we have done is we've achieved that. Yeah, it's a bit messy, looks a bit like aliens. That's fine. This is just playing. So what will happen with me, I will tend to look at that and think, I might cut them out. I'll definitely try it again. What has happened is it's stuck in 3 specific clumps, and here it's just kind of done its own little thing. But that looks quite interesting. Definitely texturised. So that one worked. Actually, I think it looks a bit like lungs. But we bring to the picture whatever we will. This is the thing about abstract art or just doing stuff like this, which is not painting anything. You look at it for a long time and start to see things. Anyway, that's the texturising. Before we go on to the third one, I also did a little bubble. Remember the bubbles? I also did a little bubble thing. Now, maybe I should have probably had that light over there, then you would have seen what I was doing. This is really subtle, okay? But also, I think quite beautiful. Can you see that? Let me see. Can you see what we've got here? We've got some really interesting textures. So when I see that, what I think is, I'm going to do it again. I might mix different colours into the water and the washing up liquid. I might put them on top. Or I might just leave that. It's kind of, I think, it's kind of a bit like a dripping Africa. like it. I like this detail here. Very pretty. Very subtle. Not like me. So I'm going to put that over there next to the wet bubbles. And we're going to go on to the third and final technique, which I have used a lot. That is the salt. Now, during the beginning of lockdown, when I was just painting and just getting so excited about colour, because that's what really drove me, I went into videos on YouTube and discovered this woman who was showing me what I could do with salt. And I was like, oh my God, this is a whole new world for me. So I started to do this. I mean, you can see my painting pads which started off like this, which is basically just dripping. By the way, that's just dripping, wet on wet. Wet the paper and use these really intense watercolour, pre-mixed liquid watercolours, and just drip them into each other. And I thought they were gorgeous. So, back to the salt. I started to do things with salt. I started to do really subtle things with salt, so we'll show you the technique first. And for this, we've already used the little tubes. We used the tubes for the bubbles. We've used the pans for the baking parchment. For the salt, I think we're going to use these. We're going to use these. Liquid watercolours. As I say, these come in at round about, oh, I've got more. Sorry for disappearing off camera. These come in about 20 quid for 10. Trust me, they last a long time. They can also be bought individually. So let's get on with the salt. Right. This is going to be, I think that was wet on dry when I did the parchment. The salt experiment is going to be wet on wet. So first of all, we wet the paper. Can you see what I'm doing? Just say yes. I think you can. We're going to wet the paper. Dun, dun, dun. Wet the paper. It always helps if you sing a song. Especially if it's not any kind of a song, it's just the nonsense that's in your head. I do this all the time when I'm painting. I tend to do things like, I don't know what will happen, how this will grow, or whatever. Doesn't have to rhyme. I just can't help myself. So, I have thoroughly soaked the paper. Now, this paper, I have to say, as I said, this is really thick paper. So, it's 300, I was going to say 300 miles to the gallon. It's not 300 miles to the gallon. It's 300 grams to the metre. Really thick. You can't do this with fine paper. I'll put all the details up. Let's just get on with it. Look at that. So, nice and shiny. And I'm just going to take colours that I think might want to play together. Let's have a look. Like this, some purple. Da, da, da. Little spots. Purple and red. Always good bedfellows. Very nice. Oh, that was a bit of a splodge. Yeah, let it do its thing. Now, actually, this is interesting because you don't have to cover the whole paper, okay? As you can see, here's one I made earlier. I'll just show you. I just had splodges. So, splodges of that pre-mixed watercolour, and I just let it do what it's doing just now on the page. Just let it find its own level. You don't have to cover the whole page. I think I'll put another colour in the middle. What do we got? Let's try this. Just another little colour. Ooh, that's quite nice. You see, because it's wet on wet, it just does its thing. Wet on wet. Something else. Do I want to put another colour on? Actually, I don't. One thing I have learned... Ooh, I'll put a little bit of blue in the middle. Purple, rather. A little bit of purple in the middle, like that. Purple. And somewhere I've got almost black, which I quite like using. These turn out to look like... Oh my god, I'm not strong enough. These can look a bit like peacock's feathers-ish. Black's very strong, by the way, so just a little bit. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so now what we've got is a sort of drying, you know, still semi-sheen. Yep, still wet enough to do this. Take the salt, and I'm going to use, actually I'm going to use just normal table salt. Really cheap, in the hand, not directly onto the page. And I'm going to just sprinkle it on. Sprinkle it on. Watch this. Dun, dun, from a height. It doesn't have to be from a height, but it makes me feel like I'm on MasterChef. So I just like to do it from a height. Oh, now I'm going to let you see what's happening straight away. I'll take the rest of it and toss it over my shoulder for good luck. Take the camera out the holder and see, look. Can we see that? Can you actually see? What's happening is the salt. Now this is actually a little bit of a chemistry lesson. Salt soaks up not only, let's see if we can get right in, not only liquid, what am I doing? Add. Somebody wants on camera. Oh, no, sorry. But it also vapour. So salt is a very thirsty medium. You'll know that if you've ever been out on the Randan and you've got yourself a kebab with all the sauce, all the salt, and then you spend half the night up drinking gallons of water. That's what salt does. Salt is thirsty. Now the really great thing here is that this is quite quick. The salt process is quite quick acting. So I can already see that it's doing its thing. It's soaking up the paint in tiny little areas, and therefore the area round about the salt is getting lighter. Now, another exciting thing to do is to hold it like that. Just to hold it up. Let it be vertical. Because what happens, you might not be able to see this, it's quite subtle, is that the salt, because obviously the granules are relatively heavy within the water, they start to slide down and you start to get that colour bleeding. Can you see that? Ooh, it starts to sweep. It starts to sweep. So now we've got some, there's a little bit of a drip, that's fine. It starts to sweep along the page. You see that bottom section? That's just gonna go its own way. I'm just gonna put that down because you either want to keep it like that and let it completely sweep down, like I did with this. I actually just did boom, 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 6 or 7 of these, put the salt on, and then sat it up like that and just let all this bleeding, which I think is one of the most beautiful parts of it, do that. Now, you can also cover the whole page, and really go to town. So, with some quite dark colours. Here we've used some bright colours. Nice and bright. See that? Ooh. Ooh, lovely. But you can do it layer on layer. So you can have a layer of paint, put the salt on, let it dry completely before you actually brush the salt off. Brush the salt off quite gently, and then you can paint on top and do the same thing again. You can build layers and layers and layers of salt. This is one which has just happened, right? So I obviously added some gold paint in, but this is just dark paint with salt, layer upon layer. A mixture, I think, of solid watercolour and liquid. And I thought, oh my goodness, it looks like Under the Sea. So then I just painted some wee blobby fish. Now, I can teach you that, hopefully. When things just happen, I don't know if I can teach them. But I thought that looked quite dramatic. Also, what's very nice, if you want to make a card or a picture for somebody, and you want to do the wet on wet technique, you can wet one area of the paper in a specific shape. Let's just say a love heart, which is what I did here. And then I just blobbed the paint on in that wet area, and it didn't seep outside of the wet area. And I just outlined the area with some gold. Then spray. I mean, this literally took 5 minutes. A nice wet love heart onto dry paper. Let it dry a little bit. Blob, blob, blob. Colours of liquid watercolour. Whatever colours you like. Salt from a height, because that's great fun. And this one I just left to dry flat. Left it to dry for hours so that I could then brush it off. It's only when you brush it off that you really see the subtle shapes. And the subtle shapes are not necessarily where most of the salt was. Look at that little subtle shape down there. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. So that's the salt. I tend, whenever I teach anything, let's just have a look at how, oh, this is coming along quite nicely. Now here's an idea. When I see that, I think to myself, I might cut these out. Look, it looks like a little birdie. Look at the wee eye and the beak, whatever. We start to see creatures in the art. We start to see, it always happens, you will see faces, we see creatures, we see all kinds of things, because our brain likes to make sense of the world around us. That's why we start to read things into abstract art, which I love. So look, there's a little birdie. Maybe it could be a dog. No, I think it's a duck. Hello, ducky. There's some kind of strange underwater creature. And I don't know, some kind of zygote floating. Oh, look at you. You're just a baby fish or a little chickie. I don't know. That's the fun. That's the fun of it. I'm going to turn this up actually. Because I think what I've done is go really intense. That's what I usually do. Go really intense. I think that's amazing. I think you can also cover the whole sheet of paper. The whole sheet of paper and get lots more colours in there. And then you might get something like that underwater scene. Woohoo! Remember, you can go dark, you can go real dark. I think we'll look at that next time, is going dark and adding in other elements like glitter or gold paint. Gold paint has become an obsession of mine. Gold paint's amazing. So to recap, when you start painting, obviously you need paints. I'm going to put a list of paints, different price points. At the moment, we're only looking at watercolour, which does wash off, although you do have to remember and wash your brushes. Look after your brushes. Don't leave them soaking in water like I did, because they will start to crack. It will come off your clothes generally, not like acrylic or oil. And another great thing about watercolour, if you're mixing watercolour, let's just say you've got a little, these little pans are great, but we could use the little ramekins that we used before. If you want to mix colours, so if you want to take in the pans, or even from here, you want to mix 2 different colours, say a nice red and a blue to get purple, it may go hard, but you can reactivate it again by adding more water. So watercolour is the very amenable paint. I love it. Is there anything else I wanted to show you? Yes. If you're out and about, like I was, remember, going into the cafes, and I just wanted to take something with me in my bag, then you get loads of these little sketch pads. If you want to just, you know, I don't know, sketch, because that's what we do in sketch pads. Play around with colour. Take some paint. People think you're crazy, by the way, when you're painting. I think painting in a public area is a radical act, but I would encourage it. Except when people come up and tell you what you should be doing, in which case they can off. Yeah. I don't know how long this has been. I know we've looked at salt, I know we've looked at baking parchment, and I know we've looked at bubbles. And for me, because I love the bubbles, I'm just going to get it again. Remember, bubbles, subtle, but really nice. You could layer that one up. Baking parchment, wow, I quite like that. Very organic. And this lovely salt that we can just play around with. 3 different techniques for introducing texture into watercolour paint. Next week, I'm dying to pull that parchment off, by the way. I'm dying to see what it looks like. But remember, you need to let all of these mediums dry completely before you shake the salt off. You gently pull off the parchment and just let the bubbles do their thing. Next time, I think we're going to stick with painting. So if you do want to do something alongside, or just create while I'm babbling on, I'll put some lists up of papers where you can get them, brushes, all different price points. Don't spend a fortune. If you've got kids, I bet they've got paint already, probably on the walls. So read their toy box, and honestly, just have fun. Like seriously, wet a bit of paper, put some blue paint next to some yellow paint, and just watch as it makes green. It's so exciting. I think we're going to make something with these next time. It's been wonderful. I'm here all week. I don't know how long it's been, but that was the first episode of Creativity with Christine. I'll try and get a little theme tune going because I like that sort of thing. Look after yourselves. Have fun. Look after your brushes. And let's get creative. Bye-bye now.